This coming Sunday is one of the major festivals of the Christian calendar, Pentecost, and so I thought it might be worth spending a little time talking about what it meant in biblical times and what it means for us today. Stay tuned. Hello, friends. Pastor Tim Westermeyer here, Senior Pastor of St. Philip the Deacon in the western suburbs of Minneapolis. Good to be with you, as always. This coming Sunday is Pentecost Sunday. It's one of the major festivals of the church year, but we probably know a little less about it than, Christmas or Easter, for example. So today, I want to say a word about the history of the festival, both the Jewish history and the Christian history, and then I want to say a word about what it means for us in 2023. So we are told, this is in the early chapters of Acts, in the second chapter of Acts, when the day of Pentecost had come, they, the apostles, were all together in one place. Very likely, by the way, the place they were in Jerusalem was the same room that the Last Supper had happened at. And I mention that because I think as Christians, sometimes we assume, Pentecost is a Christian holiday, which it is. But remember here, these are Jewish people in Jerusalem, and the day of Pentecost that's being referred to here is a Jewish festival. And indeed, in the first chapter, Jesus had said, go back to Jerusalem and wait for me there. So just a quick word about the Jewish festival of Pentecost. It's actually connected to the festival of Passover. Most of us are familiar with Passover. The Last Supper was celebrated at Passover. So for Christians, Passover is connected to Easter. And then the Jewish festival, in Hebrew it's Shavuot, is what we call the festival of Pentecost. It's sometimes called the Feast of Weeks, and it comes 7 weeks after Passover. And it's called Pentecost and was called Pentecost in biblical times because that's simply a Greek translation of 50. So it's 50 days basically after Passover. And so the Christian celebration of Pentecost likewise comes 50 days after Easter. And at that first Pentecost, Christian Pentecost, of course, the Holy Spirit is given to the disciples, and there's a very long, I'm not going to read it for you here, you can look it up, it's in Acts 2, there's a long and significant sermon given by Peter, who summarizes basically what this new faith, this new religion, which will come to be known as Christianity, is all about. It's about how Jesus was put to death and God raised him from the dead on Easter. And what I would say about that event, which now connects us to our time, is for me, one of the most compelling things about Easter and the power of the resurrection, I talked about this in my sermon at Easter this year, is precisely watching how the disciples are transformed by that event. Remember that when Jesus was put to death, Peter, first among the disciples, he fled, he hid, he denied even knowing Jesus, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And now fast forward after Easter, again 50 days at the Festival of Pentecost, who is out in the streets telling anyone who will listen about what God has done through this man Jesus and how God has raised Jesus from the dead? That transformation of Peter and the other disciples does not make any sense to me absent the power of the resurrection. And so what it suggests for us today, again, I think we tend to look back and think about events like this as historic events or events that only happened a long time ago. And the simple point I want to make for us today is that God is still at work in our lives today. The Holy Spirit is still active and present in the world, saying to each of you, come out from those doors behind which you are hiding. And where you are scared and afraid like those first disciples, and go out into the world and be my people, sharing my love and my grace with a world in need. And don't worry, I will give you the power to do those things, God is saying. So I anticipate with great excitement once again the festival of Pentecost, and I pray that this year those of us who are followers of Jesus can allow the Holy Spirit to bathe our lives and send us back out into the world with love. In the meantime, be well, stay in touch, and God bless.